Today we're talking about an old school balisong with some new school tricks. This is the Jerry Hom iBasilisk, and it comes in a number of variations that are quite interesting, and it's based off of one of his original designs. This is a classical balisong that has now been updated with some incredibly modern features. So does this new school iteration of this classic design actually hold up to the hype, or is it just a bunch of hot air? We'll get into that. Now, if you know anything about the balisong hobby, you might know that Jerry Hom has been around for quite some time, creating some very impressive designs. Back in the day, when things like the Talisong and the Alien were some of the best knives you could buy, Jerry Hom was focused on creating balisongs in a production environment that almost anybody could get a hold of, but that were also designed specifically for flipping. Jerry has become kind of a legend in the community, especially with the Old Basilisk, and this new iteration is a very refreshing take on this classic design. Honestly, it has a lot of the older features that I think a lot of bally boomers would have really liked and appreciated, but it's brought about in a way that some of the younger Gen Z type flippers might actually enjoy. Something you'll note about this balisong is that it's honestly relatively unique compared to some of the other modern examples in a similar price range. For instance, the design of this thing is absolutely brilliant. It has very intricate machining similar to the original Basilisk, carrying over all of the ideas of this design, but refreshing them in a new and unique way. Especially that blade itself is fantastic looking. The original blade is very imposing with this extremely long and pointed tip and this wonderful buoy style recurve grind. The new version of the blade is also fantastic with a more pronounced swedge and the recurve design being a little bit closer to an infinity grind rather than a standard recurve. Honestly, I think it looks fantastic, and these striking elements are what make a Jerry Hom balisong a Jerry Hom balisong. And so it's very nice to see that carried across into this new product. Some of the newer balisongs that you'll see nowadays carry a lot of features that flippers have come to expect. However, one thing you'll notice is that this balisong is relatively short compared to other ones in its price range. Now, it's not that different than some classic designs like the Alien, but it is definitely short, especially when compared to modern stuff like the Seraph or the Medusa.
Review coming soon. But it's mine.
Ooh, exciting. Honestly though, I don't think this is a bad thing. As a matter of fact, I like to see more balisongs coming out in more unique sizes. Back in the day, a lot of balisongs at the time were actually pretty small, with the Benchmade 51 being a great example of some of the smaller balisongs at the time. In the original era, longer balisongs were actually an exception rather than the rule. Nowadays though, many balisongs have gotten longer and longer to match the preferences of more advanced flippers. However, I still think there is some merit to smaller flippers with more unique designs. So I'm honestly very excited about this thing and its overall uniqueness that it brings to the hobby. But that's enough talking about the iBas in general. Let's go ahead and jump into the review section, and I think up first is going to be talking about the unboxing experience. The box that this balisong comes in is honestly fantastic. Jerry Hom did a lot of work to make sure that this comes in a nice, customized unboxing experience, and I think that it's really cool. This box is a nice faux leather sort of blue box that just looks fantastic, and it has the Hom Design logo stamped into the front in this beautiful silver. You'll notice it's held together with a magnet latching system, and inside you will find a Jerry Hom sticker and a little card that tells you about your warranty and also the parts of your balisong. So that's pretty neat. Nestled away underneath this top piece of foam is, oh Jesus Christ, is the balisong nestled away very safely in custom cut foam. This is honestly a very expensive packaging option. Ever since we've begun working on our own stuff like the merch, we realized that the packaging aspect of sending out a product is honestly a lot of work. So this shows a lot of care and thought that was put into it. However, I would have liked to see more going on here, especially in terms of the accessories that are included. Currently, you really only get this sticker and this card, and while they are neat, it's not really anything super functional. I think that there is room to improve here, even though this is a very, very nice experience and does match the premium nature of the Balisong, but I think that it's got room to grow, and especially if extra hardware was included or something more functional in the box, that would make this get a higher score. However, right now, it really only gets a 6 out of 10 in terms of the unboxing score. It is above average, and that is due to this very nice quality box and the niceness of the experience, but the actual score that it gets is only slightly above average, not well above average, because of the lack of inclusion of some extras that really could push this over the top. Moving on from the box, now it's time to talk about the tuning aspect of these Balisongs, and honestly, it's very good. Jerry Hom has been known for a really long time to be a person that releases high quality, very well tuned products right out the door, right out of the box. They come pretty much perfect every time you buy them, and I've heard very little talk about them failing in any significant way, especially when it comes to the iBasilisk. There really are only 2 screws that matter, very similar to the Chab. Even on the version that has a latch, which by the way, the latch kind of sucks as it just flops around freely. I mean, it looks very cool and it is set up in a way so that it won't impact the blade at least, but it's very floppy, so I have a feeling pretty much most people who buy this Balisong to flip will immediately remove it. When you do remove it, you won't have to worry about affecting the tolerances of your Balisong at all. There are 2 screws at the bottom of the handle that are not connected to the pivot system in any meaningful way, unlike some Balisongs, which when you adjust stuff down here, it can affect stuff at the top. This literally just has those 2 main screws, which are nice T10 stainless steel screws that hold the whole thing together. The other thing we've noticed is that we actually have 4 versions of the iBasilisk here with us right now, and all of them have the exact same level of tune right out of the box, including the one that I literally bought for myself after having these 3 because I liked it enough to do so. They all come completely perfectly tuned out of the box, and this is just something that Jerry Hom is known for. And so, because of this, we give the Jerry Hom iBasilisk a 10 out of 10 in terms of tuning, which I think is only, I think there's only one other that has a 10 out of 10 like that. I think it's the Koenig. I feel like the Crackerakin could probably be a 10 out of 10 now that they fixed some of the issues. Yeah. But like, this is rare. There's not a lot of 10 out of 10s in terms of tuning. Jerry Hom's products have a very good track record ever since the beginning, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. So yeah, I think a 10 out of 10 is fair.
You know what doesn't get a 10 out of 10 in tuning? The radio that's lodged in my fucking throat.
Do it.
Next up, we're going to talk about the durability score, and this one is honestly going to be a little bit interesting with the iBasilisk. You see, this Balisong is very similar in construction to our original 10 out of 10 durability, the Chab. It is literally just solid titanium with 2 screws held together to a very nice piece of steel. This one's S35 VNs, that's great. But does it actually hold up? Because you see, the problem with the original version of the Basilisk is that this very beautiful, very thin tip of the blade is incredibly fragile. Like, if you drop this on carpet, it might shatter the tip, much less on concrete. And the whole point of our 10 out of 10 category in terms of durability is that if you drop it on concrete, it will break the concrete, not the knife. So, while Jerry Hom did redesign the tip of this thing, I wanted to test to make sure that even though the old tip has a new functionality, it is still just as pointy, so it might still be just as fragile. And so, before we decided to actually rate this thing, I did in fact test to see if this was as fragile as this, or if it was as strong as this. To get a 10 out of 10 score, we determined that the Balisong, when dropped on concrete, should damage the concrete. This one does that. This is the new iBas. This is the one that I purchased. Holy shit. There's the tip, perfectly intact. You can see it, you can literally see it went into the concrete. completely intact. This literally would have broken off to like there had I done that. I will take that as a win.
Okay.
All right. Well, turns out he did a good job. Jerry did a good job. This one was like as fragile as glass. This one made a hole in the concrete and is still fine. There's B-roll of like the tip of this thing, and it looks the same as, we have two technically of this one. One of them is the one I bought, and one of them's one that we were sent for review. And like, you honestly can barely tell them apart by the tip now. Like, I just had to kind of brush off some of the dust, and it is still just as sharp as ever, which is honestly a little disappointing because when I dropped it into the concrete, I hoped it would like chip at all, because it's so pointy. It is terrifyingly pointy. Like, I am afraid every time I do an aerial on this thing that it will go deep into my hand if I mess up. So I was hoping that I would have some sort of solace in a broken tip, but I do not. Therefore, this gets a 10 out of 10 in terms of durability, which is once again one of the only things to get a 10 out of 10 in that category. Very impressive work here, Jerry. Even the latch version is also very, very hardcore. It's constructed perfectly. The latch, while it's not the highest quality latch and it does dangle around, it is very well on there and is made of good materials. So it is at least a high quality latch, even though I hate it. Moving on from that impressive durability score, we get into the meat and potatoes of this thing. That's right, we're talking about flipping.
Yeah! Oh, so we're not talking about meat.
No.
But down here for 4 hours with this bag of meatballs, we're not even talking about it. Son of a bitch.
You literally knocked your lens over. How much does that lens cost, Brandon?
$1,200.
Ah! All right, now I know you want to talk about the flipping, but first we need to pay some bills. So I wanted to tell you about our new products available at willhirsch.gay. And no, it's not the stickers, and no, it's not the wonderful cups that you could put the stickers on if you wanted to, or cases. No, I know you already know about all those things. This is something new. As a matter of fact, it is this brand new hoodie that I am wearing right now. You see, we have a winter collection happening, and we decided to upgrade a lot of our merch for this special occasion. We have these hoodies that now feature a embroidered front logo as well as a nicely printed back design. We also have beanies that have embroidered logos on them, and all of our hoodies, including the pullover versions, have been upgraded to include this embroidery on the front. Embroidery is basically permanent, and so even if the back design on this hoodie were to wear off, you would have a permanent representation of what this hoodie stands for right on the front in beautiful quality. So go ahead and get yourself something from willhirsch.gay. We have lots of stuff to keep you warm during the winter as it gets colder and colder rapidly in this unsettling environment that is the modern Earth. Did you like that shilling? Anyways, this thing is actually a pretty fantastic flipper. However, there are some minor details that we need to get into that lower the score substantially simply due to their existence. The original Basilisk was a relatively short design, but actually at the time of its creation, it was on the longer side of things. The Benchmade 51 and 42 were some of the most popular Balisongs at the time, and this was longer than both of them. Nowadays, you have much longer Balisongs that exist, but this was the starting point that people were at. Now, when we come to this Balisong, it is exactly the same length as the old version. But I don't think this is a bad thing. As I said earlier, I like that it has this smaller profile because it allows you to have something new in your collection, especially if you're used to modern, longer Balisongs. Its shortness does not affect the flipping aspect, and this thing can be light and fast and neutral all in one spectacular package. Jerry Hom did a fantastic job making sure that everywhere on this thing provides a very good amount of grip, even without the standard jimping that you would see on most channel construction Balisongs like this. The balance of this thing is honestly very neutral and feels fantastic while flipping around in the hand. It also fans perfectly with a nice square yet rounded feel in the hand that I really enjoy. However, it's when we zoom into the micro details that I start to have a few problems with the experience of this basically $600 Balisong. This thing is a little rough around the edges. in a very literal way. Unfortunately, being rough around the edges at this price point is kind of unacceptable. A balisong that we were comparing it to earlier is the Medusa, which is about the exact same price. Now, there is a little bit more intricate machining happening on the Jerry Hom balisong, but honestly, I think that's more of a reason that it should include these basic features. On the Medusa, we noticed that on the inside of each of the channels, there is a very slight chamfer that happens, and on this balisong, there is not. As a matter of fact, as you chaplain or simply use this balisong in general, you will notice that the inside of this channel is relatively sharp, especially straight out of the box. Some of the ones that we've had for a bit longer do feel better in this area, but that's simply due to wear from flipping and not a design feature. For me, I'm actually going to have to mod this balisong with sandpaper to fit my preferences by smoothing out some of these sharp edges that are hidden inside of the channels. It's not great for $600. This is especially concerning when considering the anodized version of this balisong. Sure, I can modify my original completely normal titanium version, but if you tried to do the same thing to the anodized one, you would ruin the anodization. And so the sort of rough, sharp feeling of this internal channel becomes a real big problem on the anodized version of the knife. By the way, the latched version of this balisong without the latch in it is even more rough than the latchless. Sure, the bottom of the handles on the latchless are a little sharp on the edges, but at least they're flat. The latch version has a large cutout that has no chamfering whatsoever, which means there are some seriously sharp corners in here that can catch on your hand while fanning or performing different techniques, and that is honestly a little disappointing. If these small modifications in terms of comfort are actually made in the final production product, I can see this thing becoming a very high-tier flipper. But for now, you gotta modify it. Squidward is my best friend in the world. Squidward is my best friend in the sea. And so, even though it flips fantastically, these small problems do lead to it getting a smaller score than usual. In this case, it gets an 8 out of 10 in terms of flipping, which is honestly still very high, because I do want to stress, this thing feels awesome to flip. It is a very unique experience, and I think that is extremely important, especially for a knife that would end up as a collector's item in a premium collection, much like this thing. So I think it is a great option, but it does require a little bit of work from the end user, or hopefully some modification from Jerry himself on future versions to add those small chamfers and make this thing more comfortable overall. By the way, there is actually a very slight difference in flipping in terms of the latched versus latchless options, but it's not enough to change the score in any meaningful way. These two versions flip very similarly, and the only difference is that essentially the spacer, as was created in the original Basilisk, was essentially moved downwards by about 1/4 of an inch at most. If you look at the latched version, you can see that it ends there. And if you look at the latchless version, you can actually see that it ends at the very bottom of the handle. This is a very different design philosophy to something like the Chab, which has the cutout where the latch would have been simply filled in with titanium. They essentially didn't change the way the Chab handles were made at all and just filled it in. So the handles of the latchless Chab are substantially heavier than the latched version. However, Jerry did legitimately put the thought into this being a problem and made sure to mill out more material from the latchless version than the latched version. And I think that that paid off very, very well. All right, so now that we've talked about the flipping, I want to get into the availability of this thing, which is actually relatively straightforward. This balisong gets a 5 out of 10 in terms of availability because it has very average availability. It is dropped every couple months, similar to many other balisongs around the world, and you can get it on big websites like Blade HQ or Knife Center. So you can get a hold of one pretty easily, but you'll have to wait for the drop. So it has a very average availability right now. Not fantastic, not bad at all, but average. By the way, last time it was on Blade HQ, this thing actually stayed in stock a lot longer than I expected it to, which was kind of nice to see. I'm assuming he's making quite a few of these things, so it's good to see when that happens, but yeah, I would definitely get your hands on one of these if you're looking for a unique experience. All right, now we move on into the final value score. This is the amalgamation of all the scores that we talked about before, and honestly is one of the hardest for me and Brandon to come up with on a regular basis. It takes into account both the price and performance and the history of the company itself. It's a very unique score, but I think we've got a pretty good idea of what this should be. The value score for the Jerry Hom iBas is a 6 out of 10. And this is for a number of reasons. We do really like the iBas and think that it is a good value because you are getting a very premium balisong for the price. But that price is a premium price. So you're basically getting what you pay for. At the same time, there are very small issues with this balisong, like the refinement issues, where I would like to see some chamfering on the inside or bottom of the handles. However, you will notice that it is still a 6 out of 10, which is above average, and there's good reason for that. This is more than just a premium balisong. It's a premium balisong with a lot of impressive features in terms of beautiful machining, incredible design, some fantastic configurations in terms of blade and handle finishing with some really impressive brush textures on the handles. All in all, we really are impressed with this thing, and we want to give a big thank you to Jerry for sending out a few versions of it for the review. He even sent out one of the first prototypes of this thing so that we could get more of an idea of how it changed over time. This is a very interesting product to me, especially due to the legacy that the original Basilisk has, and I think it is a fantastic continuation of that legacy. However, currently, we're kind of at a spot where there are just too many channel balisongs that exist already, with so many companies producing channel knives that it's kind of gotten absolutely confusing as to what is what. And so while I really do like this thing, I certainly hope that he continues to make at least the original Basilisk, if not a sandwich version of this blade, because I think that would look fantastic and would give us something different to have as a community.
Honestly, in my opinion, the best combination would be these handles with this blade.
And so yeah, that is the Jerry Hom iBas. We really liked this thing, and honestly, I'm glad we got to take a look at it. We kind of got a little preview at Blade Show, but Jerry was very kind to send out a bunch of different models of it, and I purchased my own from Blade HQ just recently. So alongside that, I'd also like to give a big thank you to our Patreon supporters. You guys are fantastic, and your support really makes this channel possible. $3 a month doesn't seem like a lot, but it actually is more than we get from many views on one of our videos. So everybody that's become one of our patrons is awesome, and honestly, Brandon and I could not have envisioned the amount of support that we've managed to garner over the past couple of years. I think when we started out, how many patrons did you say would be enough?
Yeah, when we started the Patreon in summer of 2020, there's a message of this. I said, if we have 10 $3 a month Patreon supporters in a year, I'll be blown away.
Yeah.
And we surpassed that in like 4 days.
Yeah, it was like a couple days and we surpassed that amount. Yeah. The amount of support that we've received from the community in terms of our Patreon has been incredible, and we are really genuinely thankful for that. So thank you guys so much. I cannot believe we're at this stage, but that's pretty much it for the moment. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go ahead and get that radio out of Brandon's throat.
Okay, put it in me.